In the newsroom. Here in this country, it's triggered class warfare. Larger-than-life actor Gérard Depardieu's decision to move north of the border to Belgium to avoid taxes. It's triggered violent reactions. Pathetic is how France's socialist prime minister dubbed his decision to dodge tax in the Belgian border town of Négin. Confiscatory is how the right sees the government's tax policy. Depardieu's departure does not come in a vacuum. Beat it, you rich so-and-so, headlined Libération a few months back when France's richest man, luxury goods magnate Bernard Arnault, decided to bail for Belgium. It's not just France, by the way, where politicians are scrapping for cash. As they look at their barren state coffers over in the US, the argument rages over whether to close tax loopholes and raise rates on the rich. And in the UK, it's rich corporations under scrutiny for nation-hopping their profits. What does paying your fair due actually mean? To what extent can you, quote, soak the rich? Today in the France 24 debate, make them pay is our topic. And with us from Brussels, Europe correspondent for Catalonian television station TV3, Tony Crianis joins us. Welcome back to the debate. Welcome back as well to Julia Cagé of Harvard University and the Paris School of Business. From the French Political Science Institute Sciences Po, Carlo Invernizzi, thank you. And Leonidas Kalogeropoulos of the French Small Business Leaders Association, ETIC, France 24 debate, where you can always join the conversation on Facebook and on Twitter. You can find us #debate. Now, when Brussels daily Le Soir first broke the story more than a week ago, the French press smirked a little. You had headlines like Obélix goes to Belgium. Now, as Catherine Vitozzi reports, though, things have taken a bitter twist.
An open letter to the Prime Minister, signed Gérard Depardieu. 3 furious pages published in a French Sunday newspaper, written by the actor himself. I hand you my passport, he writes, and my social security number, which I have never used. We are no longer countrymen. Then, in a few lines, Depardieu explains why he's leaving France and applying for Belgian nationality. In a nutshell, it's about tax. I am leaving because you think that success, creativity, talent must be sanctioned. In 45 years, I have paid 145 million euros in tax. Depardieu's heading just a few kilometres over the border to Négin in Belgium. There he won't pay a wealth tax, and he'll pay less on his earnings too. He's a self-confessed tax exile, publicly criticised this week by the French Prime Minister.
To move just a few kilometres over the border, there's something quite pathetic in that.
An unfair attack, according to the actor. He wrote, I've never complained, never boasted, but I will not accept the word pathetic. Who are you to judge me like that? According to Depardieu's future mayor, he was called by the actor on Sunday morning with 2 clear demands.
To use Belgian social security and to get a Belgian passport. That's what he wants. He's got to make a formal request, obviously.
One of France's most famous faces has just put his luxury Parisian home on the market. A 50 million euro for sale sign that could mean the end of Depardieu's life in France.
All right, Tony Crianis, you've been snooping around Négin this Tuesday. What did you find?
Well, actually, it's funny to take a look at Nice, especially if you compare it with Paris, where all these millionaires come from, because we're talking about Gérard Depardieu, but at the same time, we're talking about 2,800 people from France that actually are living now in this small village in Négin, which is really nothing to do with which we expect that it would be a home of so many millionaires. But the truth is that, of course, they use that as a fiscal district, but in reality, most of them, they end up living most of their times in Paris. Actually, this is what the mayor of Négin told to the press as well, that they are not going to keep on following their neighbors just to see if they are actually more than half of the year living there, so therefore they can actually be called Belgian residents. This is actually the idea that I had today. We spoke to the neighbors, and of course the neighbors are very happy to have all these millionaires neighbors there, which are giving them some extra jobs. Like, for example, in the garage, you could find a guy who would actually just do repairing for the neighbors, but now he's specialized in repairing luxury cars. So, well, that makes a difference. They're very happy to have these new neighbors in Négin.
All right, so it's a boost for the local economy. It's created a huge stink, of course, here in France. One cabinet member dismissing Leonidas Kalogeropoulos as, of course, impossible that Gérard Depardieu, as he claims, paid 85% income tax rate in 2012. Is it possible?
It's perfectly possible, and there have been studies made, and I can see my neighbor saying it's impossible. We have made very specific studies, not on his taxes, because of course I don't know anything about his personal taxes, but we've got a certain amount of bosses of companies who are wondering if they're going to leave France because they are going above 85, 90, 95% of taxing. And I am very happy that makes ironical comments on my left here, because if it is absurd that people can be taxed at such high rates, well, I suppose everybody will agree that, in fact, in front of the facts, everybody can understand that passing a certain level, it becomes absolutely insupportable and confiscatory, if that's the right word.
It's the word that's been used by the right.
Yes, confiscatory, to be taxed at these levels. Of course, one puts income tax, CSG, I mean, all the different kind of taxes you can have on your companies and on your personal revenues. And it is true that at a certain level, it becomes totally dissuasive to stay in a country where one can't cope earning more. Whatever you do in working during the year is mainly for the state.
What is the higher marginal tax rate in France on the income tax, like in the law?
The law is
41%.
41%.
If you look at the law, it's 41%. And if you look at the revenues, more or less, that Depardieu make, it would be around 40%. So he couldn't have paid 85% of income tax. Then this is one fact. So when you present the fact, you have to present the real numbers. Then he's paying other taxes.
Yes,
he's paying
like
some
taxes on his fortune.
Yes. What is the rate?
The rate of taxing on the fortune is less than 2%.
Yes,
on the,
so less than 2%. So we are fine.
No, I'm sorry. Less than 2% on the totality of the fortune. So the totality of the fortune, the 2% of this totality of the fortune can bring the taxing on the income revenue of a year.
No, this is not the tax on the income revenues. The tax on the income revenues won't be more than 45%.
No, I'm sorry, this is wrong what you just said.
Then you have to contribute with the tax on the fortune. That will be less than 2%. Then
less than 2%, not of your revenue, less than 2% of your fortune.
Yes, of course.
So
you make money on your fortune, you know. You have the interest rate, you have the use of your own house.
When you put it in reference to your income revenue of the year, and that is one of the big problems.
Tax. You make a reference
I'm not doing any mixing up.
All right, so basically...
just to be very precise.
Basically, the 85% is not a real number. So we can discuss the truth. We can discuss the tax rates in France, but we have to know what are the numbers.
It is very interesting because that means that we will agree if the facts show you that it is at 85%. I suppose you will agree that it is insupportable.
It's not the case.
All right, let me turn here to Carlo Invernizzi. Carlo, you've watched the discussion here.
Yeah, it seems to me the interesting question is not really the question of fact, but the question of principle. The question of whether it is right or not for somebody who earns that much money to pay taxes or not. And then how we're going to decide what the correct rate for a person earning that amount of money is depends on a question of principle. And in order to approach this question, the first thing which seems to me interesting to discuss in this case is the fact that somehow Depardieu was able to present this as if he were a victim. The fact that he is a victim of taxation, that it's a question of spoliation, confiscation. But taxes don't work on the logic of victimization, of punishment. Taxes are based on an idea of a general law which applies equally to everybody. And the idea is that everybody contributes on the basis of what they can.
Yes, but I'm sorry, there are 2 points to what you just said. First of all, it is very shocking that people want to stop paying taxes and leave the country. In itself, it is shocking. And we totally share this conviction and this opinion. But the reality, your reportage just showed it. In Belgium, you've got this little village. There are 2,800 French people who have gone living in Belgium because they considered there was too much tax taken on them. These 2,800 people are people who produce works, jobs around them.
For example, is not really a job producer.
Well, I don't think you can say,
you know, but perhaps he does some wine, but at the end of the day, he's not a job creator in France.
He's got a certain amount of companies he has launched after with the
he
money.
Has two restaurants, a wine company, but he's not kind of a job creator. He did not invent the Apple.
But just, if you allow me, just to finish on this point, all these people have found that somehow or another, their talent, what they succeeded to achieve, France encourages them to leave. And I think that after a while, one's got just to wonder if that's not a bad managing of the country, when all the talents are tempted to leave.
And certainly what is true is that the politicians...
2,800 people. I'm sorry, you're a bit mixed up with your numbers,
What is certain, and we're seeing it here on this set, is that emotions are running very high. What did you expect? A Lifetime Achievement Award quipped one French actor in an op-ed piece that was published today. Politicians also divided along, well, sort of the lines we're discussing here. Take a look.
If you're paying more taxes, it's a sign that you're making more money. So he's making a lot of money. What's more logical than people making a lot of money paying more taxes?
Well, I'm not going to get into it. I hate giving moral lessons. Obviously, I regret what he's done.
Tony Krianis, you can see that this has really triggered a heated debate in this country. How are people in Spain reacting to, and in Belgium reacting to this?
It's quite incredible. I would like to add to the discussion that you've had there in the studio that actually this specific taxation is going to be during the time that for super rich people is going to be during the time that there are the adjustments in the budget, in the French budget, to get to the objective of a deficit that will take maybe a couple of years. So this is an exceptional measure taken by the French government. I have to say that because, of course, in other countries in Europe, they are actually trying to find a solution to their own deficit problems, and in most of the countries, what they are doing is just cutting the social spending. But in the case of France, they are trying to do it in another way. It's just the 30 billion euros that they have to do in economies next year. They are going to do 2/3 of them increasing taxes and just 1/3 of them cutting the social spendings. This is one of the originalities of the French fiscal policies for the next year, and one of the victims could be, of course, in this exceptionality, super rich people. But here I would like to underline the big question. The big question is, are we assisting here to a hunting of rich people? And in the case of Gérard Depardieu, who is an exceptional figure in terms of we all know who he is, and we know that he is an example of meritocracy. He's somebody who's got talent. He's an actor. He's a big actor, very well known all around the world. So we're not talking about somebody who's made a fortune thanks to his family's revenues. To what extent are we really entitled to put such a big taxation to somebody like him? And of course, the other big question here is it working when in Europe, in such a small continent, in terms of moving around? We've seen it where we've been today in this small town just 2 kilometers away from the border in France. There are so many different fiscal laws that it makes it like a competition. I mean, if you've got your money in Luxembourg, even if you are inside of the EU, you are paying a lot less taxes than if you've got your money in France, for example. How long can it work if we are actually talking about the harmonization of the economies of the Eurozone?
And I'm going to pick up on both your points. First of all, the Belgians biting back at the French. There's been a lot of criticism of Belgium in the last 48 hours in this country. The foreign minister, Didier Reynders, making the front page of Le Figaro. What makes me react, quote, is when one tries to turn Belgium into a scapegoat. He tells the French conservative broadsheet, one can want a European fiscal harmonization, but I'm not sure a majority of European governments want to follow the French model. So that was his remarks. Julia Cagé, Do the socialists have a problem with the rich?
No, not at all. Like, they have a problem with inequality. They have a problem with excessive, like, public spending and excessive deficit. They need to have a balanced accounts to respect, like, norms that have been decided by Europe. We need to reduce deficits. And so at some point, we need to increase taxes, and everybody has to share the effort. If you look at what they did for the moment, they increased the VAT that is paid by everybody, and even more by poor people than by rich people. They are going to increase the income tax up to 75%, but it is not the case right now. And they still do not really reform the tax on the fortune. So we can't really say that they have a problem with the rich. But a problem that we really have today in Europe is that there is no fiscal harmonization. And it is not possible to have such small countries that would not exist. Like, you can look at Belgium, at Luxembourg, at Switzerland. This country would not be able to exist and to live without their trade with France or with Germany, with Italy or with Spain. And it is not possible to have these countries that are just attracting rich people like from France or other countries by cutting tax. This can be the case, and we need to have some harmonization.
Yes, but nobody, you've noticed, had the temptation to harmonize the fiscality in Europe in taking model on French fiscality. At such a moment or another, one can't only say that the fault relies on others, our neighbors, the other countries, the general situation of finances, the rich people who are guilty of leaving. Everybody is guilty of everything, and the only one who's right is the French government, who's decided to have very abnormal tax rates. Just
what
on this
is
tax
an
rate,
abnormal
I'm going to
tax
tell
rate?
you,
Like,
I'm going to give you the answer on what is abnormal. What is very, very interesting is we've got 1,700 billion debts weighing on the French economy. And of course, we've got to work on this. And whatever government, left or right wing, the taxes would have gone up.
And as Tony Trianis was saying, 2/3 of it was to plug the deficit is through raising taxes.
But what is very interesting is that the 75% tax on the revenues above 1 million, nobody expects that this tax will going to be in any way important to resolve our debt.
And that's the one that's made the most headlines.
The most headlines.
We're going to take a quick break.
Just because it is a symbol, and what is interesting, it is what the symbol is doing today. It's exactly the opposite of what it was
All right,
supposed to do.
does France have an image problem? We'll talk about it when we come back. This is the France 24 debate.